This video is sponsored by you and your generous support on Patreon. If you like my videos and want to directly help the channel continue so I can keep making more, head to patreon.com/writingongames and pledge only what you're comfortable with. Thank you so much for your support, and now on with the show. Seemingly the paradigm on YouTube these days is to look backwards in the form of a years later style video, a style which I seem to remember Racefic being at the forefront of, but one that seemingly everyone else, myself very much included, has aped as time has gone on. These videos are often an enticing mix of, oh god, has it really been that long? Had a chance to look back on how the industry has inevitably shifted in the years and decades since a beloved classic or infamous train wreck has released. It's rare though for a game to have changed tact so drastically, so confusingly, so immediately that I now feel like a similar kind of reflection is warranted a mere 2 months or so after said game came out. By all accounts, what Gran Turismo 7 is now is very different from what it was when critics, myself once again included, emerged from our embargo-sealed hovels at the beginning of March to regale the world with tales of how triumphant a return this was for the long-suffering racing franchise, only to be met in the weeks since with talk of how busted this game actually was. You know, I had zero connection issues during the review window, and so of course when the game actually releases is when I find out that you can barely play this game at all if that server goes down for whatever reason. And when it did, for a bafflingly long amount of time I might add, was when I found out about another, arguably even worse aspect to this whole debacle. One that I don't think any reviewer had any context for, the dreaded microtransactions. I was definitely curious as to how those in-game purchases would impact the overall game, which is why I mentioned in the review that it was disappointing that we had no info on them pre-release. But even with Gran Turismo's history of breaking up content and selling it piecemeal, I don't think anyone could have predicted the situation being as bad as it ended up. That is to say, the credits available for purchase offered you ludicrously little for your money. As a result, in desperation to earn as many precious credits as possible in-game, players started frantically searching for and fixating on those races that garnered the highest payouts. And to make matters even worse, when the top brass got wind of these tactics being used, they shut down the servers for over an entire day just a week or two after launch, rendering the vast majority of the game completely unplayable. Specifically so, they could tweak the sliders to reduce payouts for those races. And to be clear, I absolutely stand by my review of that game in terms of how incredible I think it is to actually play, which makes it all the more disappointing just how suddenly that goodwill was catapulted into the sun. For one of the best racing games I've ever played, this was bad. Payouts were already paltry, and now things were even worse. For context, the last menu book of the game sees you taking on 5 incredibly lengthy races in one go, including a mercifully vastly shortened approximation of the 24-hour endurance race at Nürburgring. All of this totaled almost a straight hour of driving to complete, and my reward for doing so amounted to maybe 1/10 of some of the higher end cars you can buy in the game. Not even the highest end cars, to be clear. I've certainly seen more expensive cars in the 6 million credit range, for instance. That's like 60 hours of racing right there. That's 60 real world quid. That is mental. Even with the million credits they so generously gave everyone for enduring the server blackout, you still wouldn't be able to buy one of the legendary cars on sale unless you were to spend another 16 quid, where without a test drive function, there's little way to know, outside of the daft talking head history lesson, whether or not this will actually suit your current playstyle, whether you'll actually get any use out of it in races, unless you're the kind of player that knows exactly what all these numbers mean and can compare it to your current collection in your head. But that's the thing, there's a real disconnect for me here. I look at the statements made by the game's director, Kazunori Yamauchi, in response to this whole situation, and as frustratingly vague as they often are, as much as they carry the same stern tone as the game's demands of sportsmanship from its players, as if telling off a bunch of kids for getting into the cookie jar, I just can't read into it the same kind of malice you'd typically associate with money-hungry publishers trying to get every last dime out of players. This doesn't seem like the same kind of shakedown. To me, it reads more as a kind of weird, pleading disappointment that players have found a way to subvert the game's vision while also begging them to take a look at the bigger picture. that believe us, there perhaps is a point to all this. And to be absolutely clear, I ultimately think that point is indefensible and makes the game concretely worse. All I'm saying is that for a series that adores every aspect of cars as obsessively as Gran Turismo does, I can't say I'm surprised as to how all of this turned out. The ways in which Gran Turismo was broken post-release seem remarkably consistent with the game's larger view of the art of cars and car culture. Bear with me here. See, for as much as the career mode gives you access to a huge variety of cars across its lengthy runtime, when it comes to buying your own car, GT7 seemingly wants you to be sure you want it more than anything else. It expects that if you actually want this car, you'll be invested enough to know what these numbers mean. If you don't, move on, the game seems to say. Sure, you won't level up your pretty meaningless collector level, I guess. There's some minuscule missions you might not get immediate access to as a result, but this car isn't for you. It won't mean anything to you in the way we want it to mean something to you. Don't just blow your money on a high price tag, you'll likely regret it. Gran Turismo's unflinching adoration for every part of the driving experience is well documented through its campaign's frequent detours to tell you in joyful detail all about the most seemingly mundane of cars. The game takes pride in declaring these aren't mundane. Even the least flashy cars are still wonders of engineering. They all serve their own purpose, one that deserves to be carefully examined and appreciated, even if said purpose doesn't line up with your immediate needs. Cars are pieces of mechanical art, symbols representing the triumph of humanity, and if you're on board with Gran Turismo's vision as it so demands in other areas, then you will respect these machines. And hell, I'm not even close to that level of adoration for real-world cars, but I can appreciate the passion, especially when it's expressed in ways as earnestly goofy as this. The problem, and where things get really insane, is that this obsession has arguably extended into the commerce surrounding that art. It seems as if there's a desire to simulate not only the beauty of realistic racing, but the wonders of luxury car ownership, the feelings of grandeur that come with going to a classy showroom to buy the car of your dreams and obsess over it in the way it deserves to be obsessed over, to show it off. You can't just buy cars willy-nilly, you can't just earn currency and throw it away with equal abandon, because otherwise you wouldn't have earned it. Again, that car wouldn't be special to you. All of this, for my money anyway, is consistent with the game's vision. The issue is, well, this is a video game. I'm not actually buying a car here. I get the passion for driving, I do. I even get the desire to have you really care about each car you get given. It's why the campaign has you gradually, methodically learn the ins and outs of every type of car over time before it moves you on to the next. But you know, I've also got shit to do, real world money to earn, bills to pay. Luxury car ownership is the last thing on my fucking mind. I just want to drive these amazing cars, the thing this game does really, really well. But going by Yamauchi's statements, valuing the actual cost of actual cars as part of the real world driving experience the game treats with such spiritual fervor reads inadvertently as a scathing indictment of car culture rather than anything to truly respect. It's as if they're saying cars are a beautiful art form, but one that we can't have sullied by the poors. But again, as much as the moves the devs have made have been obviously daft and inarguably terrible, I can't say with any conviction that they were driven by such malicious intent. This is by no means a defense of this dumbass economy or the way it was hidden from people pre-release. Rather, I'm merely asserting that given the obsessive philosophy that drove the creation of this game, the dedication to said philosophy that led to such a wild, charming presentation throughout the game's races and menus, there is a logical through line to be drawn to the point the game is at now, even if the implementation of these features conveys the opposite sentiment to what I believe might have been intended. Because look, from personal experience, all of this makes a twisted kind of sense. I partly used the payout from the server blackout, and partly used what paltry winnings I'd garnered to buy a Bugatti purely based on name recognition alone. It was ludicrously expensive and took a lot of time to get. And, you know, it's fine. It's a pretty fast car. I have faster and slower cars in my collection that I enjoy driving way more. And as soon as I took my new purchase out for its first spin, my thoughts began to turn to the numerous upgrades I could have made to those cars instead. How much cheaper that would have been for a much more enjoyable experience. I blew my money on something I wasn't sure I wanted, that I didn't fully understand, and I regretted it. I don't think it can be disputed that Gran Turismo 7 is a game that wants you to love cars as much as it loves cars. It wants you to be sure of everything, of every move you make, to regret nothing from your purchase of an expensive car to your approach on a tricky corner. And from a certain angle, that's kind of admirable. It's just unfortunate that such grand philosophical musings on the holistic experience of cars as an art form, the economic mechanisms of ownership unfortunately included, have led to what is still the best feeling driving game I may have ever experienced, with all the nuts and bolts that comprise it to suffer quite the way that it has. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that YouTube stuff, and check out my podcast and Twitch, links in the description. Most of all though, I have to thank my patrons for their unbelievably generous support. I've been working on a bunch of bigger projects concurrently that will hopefully see the light of day soon, ones that I would never be able to consider were it not for your continued support. If you've enjoyed any of the videos I've put out and want to join the many amazing people on screen helping the channel become more sustainable by supporting my work, you can directly help out as well as get things like access to completely ad-free video uploads, Q&As, and now exclusive video content by heading to patreon.com/writingongames and pledging only what you feel comfortable with. I am forever thankful for your support in whatever form it takes. Special thanks go to Mark B. Writing, Artyom Vitsyuk, Charles J. Liu, Dan Murray, Alistair Dunn, Vitautis Catharsis, Matthew Bowman, Ben Pace, David Karstens, New Static, Mike G, Tom Webster, Max Cohen, Danis Sikauskis, Christopher Faherty, Nicholas Villeneuve, Neywin Palacios, Ruth Knapman, Yogesh Deshpande, Leah Chinello, Captain Knussbrich, Bryce Snyder, Lucas, David Björk, Winter, Timothy Jones, Matthew Grover, The Nameless Guy, Tommy Carver Chaplin, Dr. Motorcycle, Shardfire, Lynn Browning, Calliope Ranis, Phelan Ermy, Spike Jones, Dallas Keane, Charlie Kimball, Jordan Midler, and Charlie Yang. And with that, this has been another episode of Writing on Games. Thank you all so much for watching, stay safe, and I will see you all next time.